Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Should we start?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What year of Hijrah are we in? What year of prophetic dawah are we in?
The second half.
And okay. And the Hijrah will be what year of Hijrah?
623.
Hmm?
6.
First, not zero. Hijrah starts from 1 AH. Did you say 6?
No.
All right. The Hijrah starts from 1, not from 0. And last time, I think we covered few stories, not necessarily in the chronological order, of some of the early immigration to Yathrib. It is still called as Yathrib. And the specific story of Abu Salama and Umm Salama and their son. Remember, their tribes went into a fight over the son, and eventually, after a few months, they were reunited. However, Umm Salama had to take her son to Yathrib with the help of Usman ibn Talha. What is special about Usman ibn Talha? What is special about Usman ibn Talha? He was not a Muslim at this time, but what is special about him?
He had the keys of the house.
Keys of
Good. So answer is there. He was blessed with the keys of the Kaaba, and even to date, the family of Uthman ibn Talha is the keeper of the keys of the Kaaba. And I sent you a detailed 50-pager on Suhaib ibn Rumi. Suhaib Rumi. Rumi stands for Roman, but he was not a Roman. He happened to land as a slave in a Roman businessman. Okay, and smart as he was, he learned Roman, and so when he came to Makkah, people thought that he's Roman. He looked Roman because he had his skin color of yellow, and he spoke Roman, so people thought he is Rumi. So Suhaib Rumi, eventually he gave up all his wealth as he migrated to Yathrib. And the story of Umar ibn al-Khattab and the two companions. This is where we stopped, Ayash and Hisham. Ayash made it, but was deceived by who? Ayash made it, but was deceived by Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl and few other companions went and brought back Ayash, and eventually both Ayash and Hisham were in prison in Makkah. This is where we left. Okay, if I may have your attention. So now we come to the finale of the immigration of the Prophet, peace be upon him, himself. Remember, the Prophet has given the permission to migrate to Medina or Yathrib, but he has not made a decision to migrate himself yet. Slowly and steadily, people are migrating from Makkah to Yathrib, but he himself is looking for a sign. He is looking for the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. Okay? And this is a detailed narration by Aisha radhiyallahu ta'ala anha herself. Who is Aisha radhiyallahu ta'ala anha? But as a father, or who was her father? Abu Bakr radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Right? So Abu Bakr radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and this is Aisha radhiyallahu ta'ala anha, and she is narrating in first person. And she was about 6 to 8 years old at this time, and she narrates that there was not a day where the Prophet, peace be upon him, would not visit to my father's house. And my father would eagerly ask him, Ya Rasulullah, is it time for us to migrate? And he said, not yet. I'm looking for, or rather, I'm waiting for the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in this, it is a beautiful thing that Abu Bakr Rizal is asking that, can I be your companion? And he said this in so many words, in the sense that he's not migrating, but at the same time, he's also not telling Abu Bakr, Umar has migrated, you should migrate too. So Abu Bakr Rizal has this slight thing in his heart that maybe I am the one who's blessed with the honor of migrating with the Prophet, peace be upon him, himself. And so he asks Prophet, peace be upon him, that will I be your companion? Okay, so at this time, Abu Bakr Raziallahu anhu, the Prophet said, of course, yes. And at this time, Abu Bakr Raziallahu anhu did something that the Arabs used to do in preparation of their journeys. What is the ship of the desert? Camel. And so the Arabs used to prepare camels when they are on to a journey. And one of the ways they would prepare camel is to make sure the camel has drunk enough water. And one of the ways you can make the camel drink water is to be giving the camel salty food. You know how when we have this salty meal, the first thing we look out for is water, right? So the camel would be fed on a consistent basis salty food, salty fodder, and it would drink a lot of water and it would store that water. Okay, that is one way to prep. The other way to prep is to tie the camel. So that the camel is not moving around or running around. What happens when you don't move?
Conserve.
You conserve energy and you eventually gain fat. And the hump of the camel, which is supposed to be the place where the camel fat is stored, it gives the energy reservoir for the camel to survive in the desert for a long, long time. Okay? So the Abu Bakr Raziallahu anhu was preparing not one but two camels, one for himself and one for the Prophet, peace be upon him. About this time, so again we are trying to piece few incidents together. Okay? Most of the people have left, there are few remaining, and of course the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr Raziallahu anhu remaining as well. And the Quraysh, are they happy about this? That people are migrating from Makkah to Yathrib? They are not. For two reasons. One is for the traditional cultural aspects that our people are moving out, but more so because now they know that Islam is going to get its second base. They had the same problem when it was in Abyssinia. So now Islam is going to get a second base, and now the situation is getting out of hands. They got to do something. And so just like we have parliaments in our day and age, what was the parliament of the Arabs or the Makkans? There was a place, designated place, it was called as Darul Nadwa. Darul Nadwa, that would be the place where they would congregate and they would make decisions on important matters, inviting all the tribes and the clans. And so then they summoned an urgent meeting at the Darul Nadwa. The entire Arab tribes, clans were invited, all but who? All but who? Banu Hashim. Why? Because the matter being discussed is about Banu Hashim's main person, which is the Prophet, peace be upon him. And they didn't invite them because the nature of this meeting was to make a final decision. Okay? And several options were raised. What should we be doing? And in one of the narrations, it is said that an old man, people had not seen him, but he showed up and he said, I am older than all of you. Perhaps I can be my wisdom can be of benefit to you. Okay? And in one of the narrations, it is said that this was indeed Iblis. Because everyone who would give a suggestion, he would cancel it. Some said that let's just, put the Prophet in confinement in a particular room or a place. And so the person said, no, but the message will still find a way out. And some said something, and he said, no. Until at a point they said, then the only option we have is to kill the Prophet, peace be upon him. Okay? And at that point, the old man said, this is the right decision. Okay? This is the right decision. So it was decided unanimously that the time has come where we should go and attack the Prophet, peace be upon him. At this time, Jibreel alayhi salam comes to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and gives him the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it is now time for you to migrate. It is now time for you to migrate. And this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever planning the Quraysh were doing at the Darul Nadwa, it is mentioned in one of the ayahs, Surah Anfal, verse number 30, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to the planning that was being done when those who disbelieved plotted against you, restrain you or kill you or evict you. All the options at the table. Okay? But they plan and Allah plans, and Allah is the best of the planners. This incident of Darul Nadwa is mentioned in Surah Anfal, verse number 30. And the issue with killing in Arabian community is that if you kill somebody knowingly, not it's a crime that you are about to commit, you have two options. Arabs had two options. One option is to call for whoever is the criminal to be executed right then and there, okay, or accept a penalty, okay. So the penalty, the discussion was that if one person kills it, Banu Hashim is going to come after him, right? And we need Banu Hashim to accept the penalty, not ask for the killer to be executed. So how do we do that? The best way to do that, they devised, and again this is evil mind, is that when we kill, each one of our tribes will have a point person and they will all strike simultaneously, so that Banu Hashim cannot go at war with the entire Quraysh. You understand? So they cannot go, and the only option left with them will be to accept monetary penalty. That was their plan, and that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring. And so Jibreel alayhi salam comes and tells the Prophet in advance, and he says the time has come for you to migrate. And Ali radiallahu ta'ala, again he's young at the age, still relatively young. And he tells the Prophet, peace be upon him, you go ahead while I take the matters that you leave behind in my hands. So if somebody, at that time, some people would even come and keep their amana with the Prophet, peace be upon him. And so the Prophet wanted to make sure that the amana, after I left, is distributed to whoever has kept it with him. So Ali radiallahu ta'ala literally takes the position of the Prophet, peace be upon him, in his bed. That when the Quraysh comes, they will find me. They will think that I am here and they will find me. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, it is said that when the Quraysh were outside, about to conspire and attack, the Prophet, peace be upon him, recited this verse, and I want to show you this. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ سَدًّا وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ سَدًّا فَأَغْشَيْنَاهُمْ فَهُمْ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. And we have placed a barrier before them and a barrier behind them and covered them all up, so they fail to see the truth. This is the verse that the Prophet, peace be upon him, kept reciting, and it is said that he came out of his house while they could not see him, and he put dust in front, in their eyes, and yet they could not see him go past them. And it is also that this ayah, if you are worried about an enemy that can harm you, memorize this verse. This verse is a prophetic verse. I mean, the Prophet, peace be upon him, used it at a time when the entire community were out with swords about to kill and execute him. And he, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, helped the Prophet by when he recited this verse. So if you are stuck in a situation and you are afraid of your enemy, this is the verse that you need to memorize. Okay, fair enough. So the Prophet has exited his house, and the Quraysh, when they actually go to attack, they find not the Prophet but Ali radiallahu ta'ala an. Okay, and they know that their plan. Although remember, the entire community was out there in Darul Nadwa, there was no possibility of somebody leaking it. So of course it was Jibreel alayhi salam. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala an continues that it was like the bright afternoon, and at a time where nobody would step out. And we saw somebody right there from the horizon walking towards us. And the person was covered top to bottom, including the face. And we could not figure until he came very close. And it was indeed the Prophet, peace be upon him. When he removed it, that's when he came. That's when we learned that it was the Prophet, peace be upon him. He comes to Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala an, and he tells Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala an to make the family go out. To make the family go out. So that means he wants pure privacy. And Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala an says, but indeed this is your family. Indication of what? The Prophet, peace be upon him, technically has already married Aisha radiallahu ta'ala an at this time. Okay? So he says, take the family out, and then that's when he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me permission to migrate, and you are my companion. And Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala an at this time literally cries out of joy, because it is a huge honor that for such an important milestone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen him to be the second person accompanying the Prophet, peace be upon him. And Abu Bakr had two daughters, of course, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala an, but the elder one is Asma bint Abi Bakr. Even Asma is young at that time, and Asma bint Abi Bakr, she quickly packs in a sack, she quickly packs some food to be taken, and in the hurry that they are in right now, she could not find something to tie. So she takes the rope that the Arabs used to tie. She takes a part of that rope and the belt, and she ties the food sack with the belt. And since then, her laqab, her title, became the person with the two belts. She was known even later as the person with the two belts. So the one belt that she used for tying herself, and the belt that she, out of hurry, she packed using that same belt. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr proceeded. Abu Bakr said, I have prepared 2 camels, and one of them is for you. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, not until I pay you back. Not until I pay you back. Even at this time, the Prophet, peace be upon him, does not want any freebie. This is a very mission critical stage. Yet Abu Bakr, he says, no, until you allow me to pay for that particular camel. And he indeed pays for that camel. And they move on. Now, where did they go? Where is Medina? Where is Medina from Makkah? North, south, east, west? North. Okay. Where should they be heading? Somewhere north? Straight north, northwest, northeast? Medina is literally almost like north, a little bit towards the west, but it is almost north. But they should be heading northwest, straight north, or north, a little bit on the east side, right? One of the 3 directions. They indeed turn total south. And this shows the planning that the Prophet, peace be upon him, did. And the planning is indeed a lesson for us of how to do the necessary steps, how to do the planning before you are interested with an important job, and then leave the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You understand? It was not like I am the Prophet and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will indeed take care of me, and then I simply go without anything. He did everything, and we'll go through some of the planning that he did. but he then relied on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the definition of tawakkul. Okay. Also, I think just last Friday, Brother Khalid mentioned that particular quote of Umar Razila Taala, that if the believers had the tawakkul of the birds, they will find that the food will reach them just like the birds. When they start empty, and when they come back to the nest, they are full. But tawakkul is not that the birds sit in the nest itself. They actually go out and seek risk. You understand? So that's tawakkul. So anyway, when the Prophet, peace be upon him, okay, so this is Ghar Thawr, okay? This is Ghar Thawr. So this is your Kaaba. On the top would be Medina, right? But they actually go all the way south. Now, when you say Ghar Thawr, was that really a cave? Was that really a cave? It was not. Think of it as like a crevice between two hard rocks. You see that there's a top, first of all, it's a mountain. On the top of the mountain, there's a plain, and just a little bit of crevice left. And there's the other part of the mountain. So it's almost like somebody can sneak in and find a place to stay and hide. It was just a crevice, good enough for only 2 people and not more. Over the ages, it has now, if you visit Ghar Thawr, you will find that it's almost like you can step inside Ghar Thawr and you can see what's in Ghar Thawr and so on, because it has been developed since then. But at that time, it was just a little crevice between the two plains of mountain. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr go and first of all go south and then go into Ghar Thawr. Okay, and they plan to spend 3 days and 3 nights at Ghar Thawr. What was the planning? Abu Bakr he planned 3 things. The number one thing is that Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr, the eldest son of Abu Bakr, his duty was to bring some food every day to Ghar Thawr, because they needed food to survive, isn't it? So it was Abu Bakr's eldest son, his name was Abdullah, his duty to go and bring the food to Ghar Thawr, number one. Number two, Abdullah had one more job, to constantly keep an eye in the marketplace as to what is Quraysh planning, because as soon as they know that the Prophet is not in the city, what are they going to do? Send scouts, right? Figure out where exactly he has gone and so on and so forth. So it was Abdullah's job to have a year in the marketplace and to come back and report any findings. There was one more job, the second person's job. The second person's job is the steps that Abdullah would take to bring the food in the desert. Those steps need to be cleared. Look at the level of planning. The steps needed to be cleaned from the house of Abu Bakr to the Ghar Thawr, and the second person's job was to let free all the sheep in that area so that the steps are camouflaged. That was the second person's job. And the third person's job was to really find a way which was unusual for the Arabs to go from Makkah to Medina. So it was through Jeddah and a roundabout way, right? So from here, roundabout way to Medina. Clear? That was the third person's job, and they would wait for the guide to come, and they hired a particular guide in confidence. Now, the Quraysh, on the other hand, have raised the prize money of finding the Prophet, dead or alive, up to 100 camels. And at that time, it is a huge sum of money, good enough for anybody to be greedy about. Okay, so there's chaos, there's everyone rushing around to find the Prophet, peace be upon him, dead or alive, doesn't matter, there's a bounty associated with it. And indeed, the Quraysh did one more thing. They hired a specialist. Okay, they hired a specialist. The question comes that when the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr are in Ghar Thawr, how did the Quraysh eventually land? That's the question, right? So they hired a specialist who then traced the steps from Abu Bakr's house all the way, and he came and brought them, saying, "This is the mountain where I can think of." After that, it's all mountainous area. There's no steps to trace. That's the best guess I have, that they would be somewhere in this area. And the leaders of the Quraysh, okay, like the Abu Jahals of the world, Mughiras of the world, right? These are the top leaders of the Quraysh. They have all reached at the Ghar Thawr. Okay, they have all reached, and so much so that Abu Bakr's heart is palpitating, and he says that, "Oh Prophet," or he whispers, he says, "Only if they come on their feet, like just bend down, you can see through the crevice." That is the state. Okay, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that he is calm, because why is he calm? Because of course Allah is going to protect him, but he is also calm because he has done the preparation. Now it is up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He whatever had to be done, had to be done. Now the rest is with the tawakkul. So he says that, "Don't you know that when there are two people, the third is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, and he will be there to protect us. He will be there to protect us." So he was calm, and Abu Bakr, indeed, Abu Jahl and everybody who came there, they could hear inside the cave, they could hear the voices, but they didn't step down to see below the crevice as to if somebody could be there, and they returned back. There are several stories that are associated that during this time there's a pigeon who kind of tried to distract. There's a chameleon who showed the way, or there's a spider who kind of knit the spider web on this. Of all the stories, whether or not it is true, but the one that is in the Musnad of Ibn Ahmad is the story of the spider web. So indeed, the spider web was present at the cave, and that was the reason for them to not doubt that there could be anybody in the crevice, because it was a perfectly knit spider web. Okay, so that is mentioned in the story in the book of the Musnad of Ibn Ahmad. So the story of or rather the news of catching hold of the Prophet with 100 camels reach far and wide, and indeed it reaches a person whose name is Suraqah ibn Abi Malik. Okay, Suraqah in short. Okay, Suraqah is not from the Quraysh. He is from the tribe, a separate tribe, and a poor tribe. Okay, and by this time, the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr have exited the cave and used the guide that they were waiting, the step 3. Remember, the guide that they were waiting for, and the guide has already started taking them through the secret route. Okay, and it is about this time that Suraqah comes to know that there is a bounty of 100 camels on catching hold of 2 men from Quraysh. As he was sitting in the company of his tribe, 2 men rush and they say, "Listen, I just saw some 2 people going via that route." Okay, actually 3 people, not 2 people. The third is the guide, right? Abu Bakr, the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the guide who's guiding them to this third route. Remember? So he comes back and reports that there are 3 people I saw, and it could be just the 3 people that the Quraysh are really looking for. So Suraqah thinks on the spot. He's greedy. What does he do? He says, "Oh, no, you're talking about those 3? They are so and so, so and so, so and so, and I know them, and they are on a mission to explore something in the desert. It's not them." So he dismisses the news. Okay, and then everyone forgets about it. And then as soon as everyone forgets about it, he sneaks, takes out his horse, and goes in that direction. He knows it is them, right? And he goes and he takes. Now, it is said that Suraqah ibn Malik looks, and he clearly sees the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr, and he sees that they are shaded. Yeah, they're shaded on the cloud with a constantly moving cloud. Number 1. Number 2, they had their own crazy ways. The Arabs of those Jahiliyyah times, they had their own ways of doing istikhara, the one that we call as istikhara. So he threw out something and just to figure out whether it's the right time to go for me and attack. Remember, he is also taking his bows, okay, and arch. So he wants to not catch him alive alone. The reward is for the for it being dead as well. So he's thinking that even if I attack it from the distance, I still win the 100 camels. So he's doing that istikhara in his own jahaliya way, and every time the answer comes out as negative. So he's really, really worried. And then when it comes out negative 3 times, he comes slightly closer to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and he says, I am somebody safe. I am safe, and I need permission. I need permission to come close to you. Grant me permission to come close to you. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, asks the guide to go to write it in writing that he is safe from us. And Suraqah ibn Malik, he eventually comes very close to the Prophet. He tells them that I am on a mission to catch you, but I will not do so. Okay, in the sense that he's in a way in his heart he's already convinced that these 3 men, or rather these 2 men, are somebody special because they are being protected by the cloud, and they clearly see the power of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So Suraqah, the one thing Abu Bakr tells him that, one thing we need from you is don't go back and tell the Quraysh that you have found us. Okay, that's the one thing from you, and in return you will have the best. Okay, and the Prophet, in fact, at this particular stage, he prophesied one very important thing which Suraqah laughed about. He said, how will it look when you on one day get to wear the bracelets of Kisra? Who is Kisra? Khusro, right? The Persian emperor. At that time of the Arabia, back to the original Adnani Arabs and the Qatani Arabs, we studied that there are 2 superpowers of the time. One is the Romans, the other is the Persians, the Sassanids. So the Qisra of the time, the son of Hormuz, is the strongest, most powerful guy. And Suraqah is hearing the story that I am going to get to wear the bracelets of Kisra, and he laughs about it. He doesn't think twice about it. But that was indeed a prophecy the Prophet did, and during the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, I'm taking you fast forward, when the Sassanid Empire actually falls down, all the possessions, including the jewelry of Kisra, is brought down to the Masjid al-Nabawi. Okay, this is fast forward many years after the Prophet has passed away and Abu Bakr has passed away. This is at the reign of Umar ibn al-Khattab, and Umar ibn al-Khattab picks the bracelets of Kisra and he gives it to Suraqah ibn Malik. This is beautiful. Thing. And Suraqah at that time believed in the Prophet, and later on he believed that he was a prophet, but he accepted Islam much later in the picture, and he was indeed rewarded the bracelet as the Prophet, peace be upon him, promised. What are the other stories during this time? During this time, there's one more story that we know. The Prophet, peace be upon him, passed by a small tent. Now they are going through this route, and during this route they are out of food. So he passed by a small tent. They knock the tent, and there's an old woman staying in the tent. And the old woman, the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr said, is there any food that we can buy? Although it was customary of the Arabs that if anybody is coming, they would give them food to offer. But yet they said, is there a food that we can purchase? And this lady, her name is Babal. Okay? And she says, I wish I could give you something. I don't have to sell you, but I wish I could give you something, but I'm literally out of food. In fact, my husband has gone to see if there is something out. You understand? So she's helpless. She wants to help, but there's nothing at her house that she can offer. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, looked at the tent to see if there is anything. And the only thing he sees is an old goat standing, or rather tied in the corner. And he says that if I have your permission, can I milk your goat? So she laughs. She says, no, this is a very old goat. She doesn't have any goat links. There's no milk in her. Okay? And the Prophet repeats saying, if I have your permission, should I try? Can I try? So she says, well, go ahead. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, makes a dua and touches the goat, and the goat indeed gives the milk. This is again, we think about it and we just make it in passing, but these are miracles of the Prophet we don't often cite. And with that milk, they had both, all three of them had in full, and there was still milk left. And when the husband comes and he finds, and he's surprised that there's no kid for the goat, how come there's milk? And then that's where Ma'bad narrates the whole story. Incidentally, as it turns out, this particular occurrence of Ma'bad seeing the Prophet, peace be upon him, her narration of the physical description of the Prophet, peace be upon him, is noted. And she is one of the few female Sahabis whose narration of the Prophet is noted, wherein she said that he was not too tall, not too short, he was just at the right height, he had this kind of hair, and he was the most handsome, most beautiful face that she had ever seen in her life. And these narrations are noted, and that is why the story is often called out. Those are some of the key things that I wanted to highlight. Again, they are the Prophet, peace be upon him, by the way, the Ma'bad incident happened just where they are outside of Medina, the outside of Yathrib, and it's about few hours away. Remember, the walking distance of Makkah to Medina, walking distance would be even 7 to 8 days. Okay, so it was pretty long journey, and these are some of the noted incidents. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, is just few miles away from Medina. Now, the city itself is called as Yathrib, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, was the one who named it the city of, or rather, Al-Madina, the city. Okay. In fact, if you look at the Quran, every time Yathrib is mentioned, it is mentioned in the context of the Munafiqun. It was the Munafiqun who always referred it as Yathrib. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Prophet, peace be upon him, named it the city of Medina. It's called as Al-Madina by name. And of course, the Aus and the Khazraj had absolutely no problems because they have accepted Islam. So we'll take a pause here. If there are any questions, we'll stop. And inshallah, next session is the session where the Prophet, peace be upon him, actually is welcomed in the city, the beautiful city of Medina, and there are young girls, small girls who sing in the praise of the Prophet, which we will see inshallah. Any questions?